Hi, everyone, and welcome to our session today about how we can transform education, and more specifically teaching, through AI. My name is Amin Marei. I'm a faculty member at the Graduate School of Education at Harvard, where I focus on how can we use technology to create accessible learning experiences. We won't have a lot of time, so I would highly recommend that you check our distinguished guests and speakers' amazing bios on the brochure of the event. But I'm going to ask our speakers to please introduce yourself briefly, just your name, your affiliation, and anything else that you'd like to share. I'm going to start with Professor Eleonora.
Hello, my name is Eleonora Villegas-Reimers. I come from Boston University, the School of Education, and happy to be here with all of you.
Hello, Mounira Jamjoom. I'm a partner in PwC Education Skills and Practice and the founder of ANAB, which is an online platform for teacher training in MENA.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kjeldsen. I'm from Aarhus University, Denmark. I'm also chairing the IEA organization, which is an old research organization that compare educational systems, and we cover more than 80 systems at the present. So I'm very delighted being here.
Hi, I'm Fadia Saada. I'm the Regional Director for Human Development at the World Bank, covering Middle East and North Africa.
Good afternoon. Dr. Stefan Sommer. I'm the Director General of MIS Schools here in Riyadh.
Thank you all. So as you can see, a super impressive group of panelists that, again, I highly recommend that you check their bios in the brochure. So I think it will be really important for us as we begin this discussion for us to set it up with Professor Eleonora's expertise on where teacher education is and where it's headed. So Professor Eleonora, this floor is yours.
Thank you. I will try to be very brief so that we have time for a discussion, and I'm going to cover 7 points. The very first thing is that teachers are professionals, and we should not forget that ever, that teachers are professionals. Their preparation begins when they enter the teacher preparation program in college, and they finish when they retire. Professional development is a lifelong learning process. The second thing is that teachers and the teacher profession is informed by research. We do a lot of research on how teachers learn and how teachers need to learn how to teach. And we are based on information that comes from neuroscience, from psychology, from human development, from economics, from sociology. We really it's a multidisciplinary profession. The third one is that teacher preparation is constantly and in a process of evaluation and transformation. So AI for us is one new tool. It's not a substitution, or at least that's my point of view, but it is a really excellent tool that we can use to do our job better. The fourth one is that all professionals are prepared by the profession of teaching. There is no professional in this room or anywhere in the world that has become a professional without teachers behind them. Even the people who develop AI had teachers preparing them so that they could develop AI. So think about that and the power and importance of teachers. The fifth point, teaching happens in a context. It's a social context, it's a political context, it's a cultural context. And we have to remember that currently our context, except in very, very few countries of the world, put teachers down. Teachers are not thought of as the professionals that they are. Everybody thinks that anybody who has had a teacher knows how to teach, and we know, those of us who are teachers and prepared teachers, that that is not the case, that teachers really are professionals. You would never think about having a surgery from a doctor who has not been professional prepared. We should not think about having teachers teach if they have not been prepared as professionals. The sixth point is that if we go back full circle, if teachers are professionals, they also are researchers and practitioners of CEOs of classrooms. They are practitioners. They know everything. They need a seat at the table. When we're talking about teachers and AI, we need to hear from teachers. Teachers should be here talking about their experiences with AI. The seventh point, AI is it's not a substitute for teachers, it's really just a tool. And it is something that we hope that we discuss today. So I'm reminded of 2 questions that were asked yesterday as the conference was opening. What do students need to learn that AI is unable to teach? And I hope that we can answer that question. And the second one is, what qualities make us human? Well, I think that those two questions are connected. We are humans because we are not AI. We use AI as a tool. And I think that teachers and children specifically, especially the younger children, need teachers who are human and who remember that brain development and the research on brain development has demonstrated that learning happens more effectively when there are human emotions involved in the process. And AI cannot reproduce the human emotions, no matter how wonderful the bot is. So with that, I hope that we can have a good discussion, and that helps set the tone for what we're going to discuss now.
Thank you, Professor Eleonora, for such a powerful and rich, I highly recommend, I know that everything's being recorded right now, for anyone who is interested in teacher preparation and technology, broadly defined, to check what Professor Eleonora just mentioned. The 7 points, I think, are incredibly valuable and rich. And I mean, obviously in your points that AI is at the core of a lot of those discussions. It's forcing us to have very important conversations about the present and the future and teacher preparation. And AI is already transforming teaching and learning through platforms, adaptive platforms, personalized learning, and curricula at the same time. And I think for all of you, as education systems continue to evolve, what do you think will be the role that you see AI playing in shaping the future of teaching and learning? And Dr. Stefan, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I just want to respond to what I've just heard, and thank you, Professor. That's very interesting. I'm not so sure, actually. I agree. With human interaction, of course, we emit oxytocin and we form a relationship, and that improves learning. However, I have just been at a conference where one of the main speeches was given by an AI, and you could hear a pin drop in an audience of about 500, because people were just absolutely mesmerized by this. Because it's new and we like new things, but I'm just not so sure that at this early stage we can say that we will never form a relationship with a machine. At the moment that's difficult because we're simply not used to it. We don't do it enough. But this next generation, or maybe the generation after it, maybe that will be there. Now, coming back to your question, I think what is the biggest problem that we have in teaching at the moment is that the current generation of teachers are novices. Many of us are novices to AI, but also to the use of technology. But of course that will change, because now with the new generation of teachers coming in who were educated, who grew up with technology, there's a different approach to all of this. I just want to make a general point there. We know, and of course we are all people who are working in education, and we know what the view is on AI around the globe. And we know that in some European countries, it's been declared illegal to use in many schools because, it's cheating. I completely disagree with that too, because things that present us with a challenge should not be excluded. We shouldn't just say, oh, well, that's difficult, we can't include that, there you'll be cheating, and therefore let's not use it. Because it's like the wheel of history. The wheel of history is spinning, and you're either on it or you're not on it. And it's still spinning, even if you're not on it, and you will only end up running after it. So what I think is we need to embrace it. And even those teachers who are not used to it and who are not natives, digital natives, need to use it. And that is where teacher training comes in. At MIS schools, we are the Crown Printer School, and we are Beacon School here in the Kingdom. We do have our own teaching and training academy, and we do that. And we do make sure that teachers are constantly staying up to date with what the current thinking is in their profession. Now, that's not common in many other schools. And I know that the Ministry of Education here in the Kingdom have only recently launched the Institute for Professional Development for Teachers, which is really, really very important. But a lot of that time needs to be made available, time in the timetable, and it needs to be an expectation, it needs to be part of their appraisals and all of that kind of thing to make sure it is also happening. The students are fully up for it, and I just want to make a comment on that. The necessity for us as teachers is to live with AI and with technology, because otherwise we will simply be overtaken by time. Now, while I firmly believe that education is no longer monodirectional, so it's not the teacher who knows everything and the students who know nothing. Actually, there's quite a lot that we learn from students every day, and it's a giving and taking. But I still believe that we will not be doing our students a service, a favor, in the 21st century if we know so little about technology and AI that we simply don't incorporate it. Because we need to meet our students in their world and not try and drag them back into our world, because that's gone. The 20th century is not coming back, at least not to my knowledge. And it's very important that we bear in mind they are going forward, not backward. So we need to move ahead and train them for the skills that they need when they start their professional lives.
And to this point about like looking ahead, I think it's also really important for us to think of like it from a systems perspective too, not just from like a schooling perspective. I'm curious, Dr. Saada, like how do you see some of the initiatives that are currently happening with the integration of AI or with technologies in general within the MENA region, and whether there are any lessons learned from it from a systems perspective?
Thank you. As mentioned, I think it is actually happening.
Yes.
So the question is how to make best of it. And we have seen a lot of important opportunities that could be used from AI as well as risks. So let's look at both sides of this. First, I see that actually we're not moving at the same speed for embracing AI. And that's important because especially education, the saying it takes a village is true. It takes a family, it takes the teachers, it takes everyone. And yet now we see the AI mostly being embraced by private sector. We don't see everyone embracing it at the same time. What happens, we become reactive instead of proactive, instead of setting the tone of the agenda and embracing it moving forward. So the first call would be for us to really embrace it, all of us, to have multi-stake thinking and visualizing what will this be like in the future. And that will really probably different uses and different results. So that's why it is important, especially in education, as we shape the future generation, to do that. The second is really the opportunity. AI does have a lot of opportunities, and given the education crisis we see across the globe, why not use it? We know that there are a lot of statistics, but one just to illustrate the point that we have in low middle income countries, more than 70% of kids less than 10 don't have proficiency in reading. AI could be a quick tool for remedy, for catching up, for more personalized learning. And we're seeing now pilots of this happening across the world. There's one in Nigeria that showed huge potential of kids catching up in 6 weeks, what could have taken them 2 years. So there is opportunity there to personalize the learning, to really have better outcomes. But let's not forget what we need to think about in terms of risks. We have to think about the whole issue of equity, of distribution, the issue of privacy of data, and also the skills that cannot be done by AI, especially social, emotional, and critical thinking. So we may need to evolve with it, because then we can have much better outcomes for the future generation.
100%. And speaking about outcomes, I think that's a great segue to Dr. Christian. And what are we learning about how AI is being used in assessments with data to understand learning, and also to try to create and cater learning experiences for students?
First, allow me to make a little excursus and take up the note by Dr. Professor Eleonora. Before entering and answering the question about AI and its impact and how to deal with it, let's step one step back and ask what is actually teaching and learning. And for me, it's you could call it the dew point between a teacher who is willing to teach and a student who is willing to learn. And that's within that sociability that learning starts. And the teacher cannot, when there is a fight in the classroom, go and consult the AI and say, what to do now? My competences do not reach to solve this. They need to use what is, with a Kantian approach, called professional judgment, or if you like, a more Greek philosophy, Aristotle way of thinking. They need to use their professional reasoning. And professional reasoning comes and is developed over time, teacher training, by experiences, but most and foremost by research and knowledge about children, pedagogy, didactics. And there are our studies, which are international large-scale assessments that compare different educational systems, come in handy, because it provides the knowledge base on how students, react on particular teaching practices. For instance, open classroom climates, it turns out that it fosters better learning, and these things. We learned that by comparing different educational systems. And one of the studies we have is the International Computer and Information Literacy Study. And we made a follow-up with a questionnaire for the principals there in 12 countries. So it's kind of, it's not our largest study, but at least 12 countries. And the principals, the students have principals saying that they are very positive towards that AI will support better planning of lessons. They're also very positive about being able to make tailored individual learning for particular students. But they also see some pitfalls. And I'm very positive towards AI. I use it. I build models and these things myself as a researcher, so don't misinterpret me. But still they say, okay, they have a 90%, 9 out of 10 have a concern that the teachers will not be able to differentiate what the students have done and what they have just got from the AI. And one could say, is that a problem? It's a problem because they cannot follow the progression of the students anymore. If they cannot rely on the homework, what the students do in class. And I think there's a lot to learn there. We have the data, it's available, and I think the sociability and the need to understand what is teaching, then it becomes a powerful tool that can support it. But we should not blindly just go into using it. And that's one of the last points. The principals, they are afraid that the teachers rely too much on it. And think about it. It's probability models. It gathered information from all over. Also information that is not true. So they are really, thinking about it. Thanks.
Thank you. That's super powerful. And I think understanding also how practitioners are using it, because we shouldn't wait for research, because research tends to take time. And I think a great lens, and a person I know offers a great lens to how practitioners are using AI is Dr. Mounira, through your experience with Anab, Imkan, and also as a current partner at PwC. I'm curious, how are you seeing AI being used in teacher training or being used by teachers in general?
Okay, so I'll go back to, the point we mentioned in the beginning in the scene setting, which I think is critical, is that teachers are professionals. And like all professionals in the world today, we are all in a moment of learning about AI. And I think in education specifically, we are in a very interesting duality. We are asking people to learn with AI, but we need to also ask them to learn about AI at the same time, if not more. So when it was a decision specifically for one of the companies I founded, Anab, to start introducing AI to teachers, we said we will start by talking about what is AI, the history of this technology. We cannot expect a lot of teachers to understand. I don't understand the technicalities of how this technology works, the benefits of the technology, etc. So it's a very interesting duality. We should maybe remember that we are still in a research and development phase. And I find that a lot of the countries today are establishing funds and pilots basically to test AI at smaller numbers with students and teachers. And I do believe that this gradual rollout is the right approach. You want to see how practitioners are doing it, but also how teachers are using it. How it could change the system, I think for teachers, we're seeing them use it to maybe support them with administrative work. It's making life easy. Let's put it this way. We all use it. It makes our life easier. With students, we're seeing a lot of adaptive learning and supporting with adaptive learning, with content, which is a very interesting area, because content is being disrupted by AI. A lot of the curriculum is going to be personalized through AI, AI-adapted content, and that would be an interesting thing to see in how different countries start to develop curriculum and start to develop personalized curriculum. I tried to bucket how teachers are using it to finish quickly AI in 7 areas, or where, because I do weekly, I try to make it a point where I test a different solution. So there's the personalized learning platform where there's tailored PD to teachers at their different level, different subject matter. So that's been there for a while. It's the Coursera's of the world, and that is going to continue to be there. Then there's the AI coaches, which we see is really increasing, having that co-pilot teacher with the teachers to support teacher work. There is the support with lesson planning, and I don't want to name certain solutions, but there are a plethora of solutions to support lesson planning today is so much easier than it was before. The interesting thing I'm seeing is the data analytics of classroom insights. How much teachers are talking and how much students are talking. That's new, and that's something that I think is very interesting to research. And finally, AI simulation, again, where in training, where they simulate a real-world classroom. How effective are these tools? We don't know yet. There is some research here and there and different opinions, but we don't know yet.
And I appreciate the honesty, and I think it's really important also to reflect on that. I mean, one of my colleagues, she's also one of the prominent figures in AI in education, and she keeps telling me, like, no one knows its impact on learning right now because we don't have sufficient time to measure it. First, Eleonora, obviously, I think all our speakers today reflected on your setting the scene session. So is there anything else that you want to add about like how AI is also engaging with teacher education?
I was going to say that one of the things that I focus on teachers, but when we think about how we're using it in teacher education, at least in Boston University where I work, we are using it in many ways, and we always begin to talk with the teachers or the teachers-to-be as begin to think about AI as a thought partner. Play around with ideas with AI, present an idea, and then wait to see what it says, and enter into a discussion similar to what you discuss with a partner in real life. And one of the things that we're asking them to do, because we are learning and collecting data, is, but you need to show us, what did you produce first? What did you ask AI? What AI gave you as a result? And then what meaning did you make out of what AI gave you? And it's a good way of beginning to engage with AI as adults, and then think about, okay, but if you are getting prepared to teach science in high school, it's different than if you're getting prepared to teach science in kindergarten. And how do we use AI also to think about that? So there are many, many ways in which AI, I think it's a really wonderful tool, but I don't think, my concern is when we begin to talk about substituting teachers. Because after the pandemic, we know in most countries of the world, teachers are abandoning the profession. So we don't need to add one more thing that would say, oh, actually, we don't need them. They can go. We have AI. And that's the wrong message to send. Teachers are professionals that deserve all the tools that we can create, but also deserve our respect and good professional preparation so that they can use it effectively.
Absolutely. And I think like this begs the question, everyone right now is talking about like how we should reimagine education, reimagine learning, and also reflecting on that is also reimagining teacher education. And I'm wondering, A, whether we should reimagine it as a general question, and if we do, how does that look like? I'm going to open this question to everyone just for the sake of time, but I want to begin with Dr. Fadia, because I know that the World Bank has developed a report on this very topic. So I'm curious, from your perception, how do you think we should reimagine teacher education and teacher preparation based on all the advancement, the fourth industrial revolution, if you may, and just make sure that it's adaptable to all the changes that we're experiencing right now?
Okay, thank you. We have a lot of reports. I'll just reflect on one that you mentioned particularly, but that was actually prepared not just for AI, so but some of the lessons are generic. First, what's most important probably is that this is a report that looks at teachers and teacher preparation. And that in itself, I think, is very important because worldwide we have a shortage in good teaching. Not always in teachers, but in good quality teaching, there's a big shortage. And that's, when you look at the data across, that's a big problem. And you need to have the quality. We talked about the poor statistics of education outcomes, and we all know that the teacher is one of the critical ingredients for good outcomes. So why is that? If you look again from a macro picture, you see that there's been a lot less research and a lot less evaluation and a lot less focus on teacher preparation, which is why this report focused on it. Why is that important? Because we have on many things. You need evaluation, you need to look at the methods of teaching, you need to look at the placement, you need to look at many aspects of the teacher training. So there's a big call for action for much more focus on teacher training and the preparation of teachers in general. There's also a request. I mentioned 3 points that struck me as well. One is, again, the point of involving more than one stakeholder in teacher development. Teachers in the old days used to be part of a community and how they engaged. So the essence of it is still there. They have to understand the kids, where they're coming from, how they interact, etc. So this teaching preparation needs to be involved in looking at different parts of government. You have to look at the local community, local governments, families, etc. The second point is really about the need for better research on efficacy of some of these training programs. Which ones work? I hear many countries and governments ask me for a teacher training center because they know they have a problem. We will have a training center. But is that going to solve the problem? We don't know which ones work and why and how. So we need a lot more work, and maybe we can start with colleagues here and others. The third point is on the need for practical, not only theoretical learning and placement in schools. So there's a lot more to the report. I'm sure it's available. It doesn't get as much into the AI yet because this was completed now. But I think some of the same essence could be taken as we evolve with teacher training. They will be more facilitators. They need more of these skills for the future than now. Thank you.
Absolutely. And Dr. Christian and Dr. Stefan, I saw you both nodding, so if you want to reflect
Yeah,
1 minute.
And I completely agree with that. But when we reimagine education for the digital age, not only with AI, but for the digital age, I think it's very important to bear in mind that the human interaction will always be important, because our children, and we're not teaching robots, we're teaching our children, we have to role model. And they need to see what is right, what is wrong, how do I need to behave, what do I do, and that kind of thing. But also, I think it's important not to forget what makes us human. What makes us human is the imperfection. And the machines, as I've heard in that talk that I just referred to at the last conference when AI spoke, and it was a brilliant deliberation. But it doesn't leave much room for discussion. So we're at risk of actually becoming very plastic and turning our human beings into an equivalent of what the machines are. So that really is very important, that we do keep the upper hand. But when it comes to reimagining education, I think it's very important that we bear in mind that our children, this generation, needs to function very differently from the way we function. They need to be able to conceptualize much higher order thinking skills than we had to do. Because this AI that helps us in all sorts of ways of life, when the next generation is our age, there'll be more AI. There will be AI that programs other AI, and then that AI again programming other AI to a higher level of sophistication. But somehow we must make sure, for the reasons that I've said at the beginning, that humans stay in control of all of that. That's what our children need to learn from a very early stage, that what the essence is that makes us human, of what actually is it that we want to stay in control of, so that the machines just don't keep programming each other in the future. And for that reason, I just want to mention one more thing. At the moment, we are too much based on the 20th century. We are teaching our children too much stuff that they could look up in 2 seconds on their phones. And that needs to be thought about. Why are we teaching all? So what it needs, a complete curriculum reform, not only in the kingdom, and that's what it's being done at the moment anyway, but generally around the world, to think about, well, actually, what are the skills that our children need when they enter the job market or the university market? And what type of things? Knowledge will always be needed, and there needs to be tests of knowledge, and all of that that's quite clear. But I think we need to be much more precise in what kind of things do we actually need children to have, that we know AI can help them with, the computers can help them with, but they still need that as a stock of knowledge because it makes them human and part of their community, part of their nationality, part of their identity to know all those things. For instance, it's important that we know our history of who we are, where we've come from, however much we use AI. And that kind of thing, and what disturbs me a bit, and at MIS schools we have a lot of opportunity to do that, but generally it's not being thought about. And although it's being researched by a lot of institutions around the world, governments per se that have responsibility for making sure that education is available to the students.
So I just want to make sure, because Dr. Kristen, you wanted to comment on something. So just to give you, because we only have like around 2 minutes. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, thank you. Just briefly, one key take-home message from my side. We need to investigate and to invest in teachers becoming aware of AI possibilities and the pitfalls. We need to support informational literacy in teacher training programs and among existing teachers. And I tell you why I know this. It's because across quite a lot of countries, we see that students, when they are asked, where did you learn about, for instance, how to assess the reliability of information on the internet, they say they learned it more outside of school than inside school. When we ask them, how did you learn about scams on the internet? They say, we learned more about this outside school than inside school. When we ask them, how is it about privacy and the internet and AI? Well, they say we learned more about it outside school than inside school. How come? That's because teachers, in order to teach these things, will have to learn it themselves. So that's a key message. We need to address that point.
I think with this same lens and acknowledging also the time that we have left, Dr. Mounira and Dr. Eleonora, just if one sentence, if someone asks you, what's a bold vision that you have for improving teacher preparation, transforming teacher preparation, what would you say, Dr. Mounira?
I don't think we need to necessarily reimagine teacher education. Sorry for being underwhelming.
No, I agree. I actually agree.
Because I think there's a lot of good practice around the world, and I think we need to learn from that good practice. And I totally agree that it's not about establishing a teacher training center. The governance is very important, but it's about setting the right policies for teachers across the board, from selection to preparation, to entry into the workforce, to enabling them after the workforce, AI and more, and digital literacy, and then even to retirement, and really supporting them as contributors to a very important system.
Thank you, Dr. Mounira.
And I support that fully. I agree completely with her. One thing that I do want to know, and I know that we're past time, is that none of us have addressed the issue of teachers also have to think about how to develop the conscience of the students, the moral development, the values of the students. And that is something that I don't know. We don't have any information about what is the role of AI, if any, in that role. And that's part of teaching too, and part of teacher preparation.
Thank you, that's super important. And I mean, I wish we had like the rest of the day to continue our discussion. I highly recommend for all of you to continue the discussion with our distinguished panelists today, but please help me in thanking our distinguished panelists for such a great discussion.
Thank you.